Hello, good morning, everyone. So we'll start our session now. It's good to have you all back for our Firestarter Incubation Program after taking a break for the holidays. So as usual, we're up and about early on a Saturday to meet and learn from experts that will help you with your respective startup journey. In today's virtual fire session, our topic is all about branding and marketing. And we've got just the right people, an accomplished and highly decorated panel of speakers to help you understand how marketing and branding are crucial to you as a founder and to your startup. So our session will run from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. with each speaker being allotted an hour to talk about his or her topic and address your questions later on. Please make sure your mic is turned off unless you're requested to talk to avoid disruptions and turn on your cameras during the virtual group photos. By the way, unfortunately, Miss Karen wasn't able to make it to her 8 a.m. session due to a sudden blackout. So we will be rescheduling the said part of our session on Monday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon. All right. So the first part of our virtual session is a talk by Kate Hancock. Dubbed as a pivot queen, Kate is the founder of Bintana sa Paraiso, which is situated in Camiguin, where she was born. She currently manages IBH Media to inspire more women to live their dreams of entrepreneurship. She has been named as one of the 100 most influential Filipino in the world, the young entrepreneur to watch in 2017, and a Woman of the Year nominee from Orange County Business Journal and Business of Excellence Award. Kate, who has an impressive startup background, will be sharing her experience to you and insights on how marketing and branding help their businesses. We hope you take this opportunity to learn from her as a homegrown industry leader who has expanded to an international reach and interact with her later on as much as you can. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first speaker of the day, Miss Kate Hancock.
Hi everyone, can you see me? Oh,
Yes, we can.
I'm so honored to be here. I'm going to share you my screen. Yeah, this one. What? No, I'm just gonna do. Where is my? Oh, no, it's not showing. Play. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm honored to be here. My name is Kate Hancock. And so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm local. I actually graduated in Xavier University in 2001. And this is me when I was in high school. I graduated in Fatima College of Camiguin. So I grew up really not having much. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a story before I'm going to talk about branding and marketing. So when I was very young, we actually have to collect this coconut husk and dry it as a firewood and use it for pastel, if you're familiar with Van Dep pastel. So that's my grandmother's recipe, and my aunt scaled that business into where they are now. This is one of my store in Orange County. So if you could see the look and feel of it, it screams for luxury. So when you create a brand, you have to make sure that it fits to what you're selling. You can see the gold mirrored and the marble floor because I'm selling a high-end treatments, spa and skincare. So you have to be very specific when creating a brand, and you know when you need to be very concise and be strategic into creating your branding. And you have to, first you have to do this process. You have to ask, who's your ideal customer archetype? You need to figure that out. Who's the person that will bring you success? And ask the second process, the brand swagger question. What is that one thing that your customer can get from your company that they can get from somewhere else? That's a very good question for you to ask when building a company or your personal brand. And the third one is you need to dial in your brand's personality. What are the praise that you need to use, the color, the images, things that you don't say. You have to figure that out when building your company or your personal brand. So this is my logo for the Mintanat sa Paraiso. I tried to keep it as local as I can. So I utilize the birds of paradise plant because I want to keep that Kamigan feel. And our brand is a little bit bold, and we try to do a little bit of hint of luxury. So our logo, it has some personality that really present who we are as a company. So again, the image, the logo, the font makes, you have to be really specific about it. So this is when I started the Bintana Superaiso brand, a tiki hat. It just started with just this, uh, very simple, not having much. And now this is what it looks like. So I have two locations in Camigan. This particular brand screams a little bit more higher end clientele. This caters towards honeymooners, and it's clean. It looks like Santorini. So it's expected whoever would show up in Bintana in this location, they have to pay a little bit more. And this is our second location, which is so different. It's targeted for millennial. It's people that wanted to take Instagram. It's more fun. It's more laid back. So this is a little bit of your budget friendly place. So if you could see the contrast, there are two different market, and I was very specific about the branding of the other location compared to this mountain location. Another one success that we've been doing at Bintana Separaiso is you really have to leverage the influencer marketing. If you're familiar with them, this is Zoe and her boyfriend, Bisayang Hilao. They were, you need to learn how to build relationship with the famous influencer, but you need to learn not to be creepy about it. You have to do it right. So they stayed at our place. We did exchange and trade work, and with them posting about our brand, it elevates our brand, and that helps us gain customer. So as creating Bintana Saparisa, I was really maximizing influencers marketing. This is one of our ads for Bintana Saparisa, and if you're seeing, we have a 1.5 million views. So why is this ad is so successful? I did a strong storytelling about the company and the brand and Camigan in general. So when you build a brand, you need to learn how to story tell. When your story is well crafted, you actually influence others to take action or motivate change. And that story, you are creating a bond to that person, and that's how you build, new fan, or your existing fan become your avid brand ambassador. So the success of this ad with 1.5 million views, I think only spent about 10,000 peso on ads. The rest, it's all organic. People are sharing about it. I have 3,500K of shares through storytelling. So you need to learn how to storytell. If you share about your story when it's well crafted, then it becomes your personal brand. Your story should craft of who you are, and that is an expression of your life if you are, building your personal brand. Again, storytelling is my favorite strategy. And this is again influencers marketing. This is the Juicy blog. They were one of my customer, and I utilized them after, after the second stay. We did a trade work. So it's so smart for you to really try to build relationship with people that has influence and leverage that relationship. The third question that you have to ask when it comes to branding is, how do you make your customer to be the hero of their own story? I know this is a little bit deep, but what we did in Bintana Separate, so it's part of our company that we give away food to a neighboring kids in the area. So when you tell a story about what you're doing, your customer, every time they book a room for us, then that makes them feel good because we do something, you know this being a generous company. So how, ask this question, whether you're building your personal brand or your startup, how are you going to tie it, but make sure you're very genuine about it. How do you make your customer to be the hero of their own story? And thank you so much. That's my presentation.
All right, so that's the end of Miss Kate's presentation. So we'll now be opening the floor for Q&A, since this is actually a part of the session that's more about sharing, since Kate is a serial entrepreneur. We'd like you to grab this opportunity to talk to her and ask her about her experience and get insights on how this has helped her with her startup journey. So first question, how do you identify or how to pick the right font or color, etc.?
Okay, you can hire an agency to do that for you. There's a lot of tasks that really can narrow it down of what's your brand's personality. So actually, my good friend of mine, she runs the Citrus Studio, so she helped me guide into that. So, there's a lot of you can select, and it has different font means something. I will be happy to send you that test.
All right. So another question: as a startup, how much should we or the startup spend for branding?
It varies. It takes a lot of time, but like in the US, if you really wanted to do strong, I know it's startup, normally you have to spend at least 5 grand just your, website or your personal brand. So it depends on how much you're willing to spend. But if you can do it yourself, that depends on you how much you're willing to spend. But definitely make sure you really have a good website, your content are you know, on point. If you don't know what you're doing, then hire a good copywriter or maybe just do a trade. Things that you're good at, then have a trade with someone else. That way you can save, because I know it's hard being a startup. You don't really have that much working capital. So figure out who you can trade your expertise to someone.
Hi, Miss Kate.
Hi.
Okay, so I have another question. What are the branding mistakes we should avoid?
Okay, so you really have to figure out what your brand stand for. You know, you can't be too edgy just to be relevant, because you need to adhere what is that, you know, what you stand for. Some, you can't go crazy just to be relevant, so you be careful. As soon as you figure out, you know, your branding, what's your goal, stick to that and embrace that mission and culture and, you know, your brand, you know, what you stand for. You just can't be edgy to be relevant.
Okay, Miss Kate, thanks for that. Most of our startups, Miss Kate, are just starting out. Okay, so they have low budget in terms of yun nga, marketing and branding. So, do you suggest any budget allotment or percentage to allocate for branding and marketing per se?
Okay, so depending on what, you know, depending on your company, I think you really need to utilize in your community, get as much like as you can, and whatever that page that you're creating, for example on Facebook, utilize a Facebook group, see if you can get as much traction as you can. Then have, you know, sometimes it's hard for people to trust you, even your friends, they don't really want to share your page, right? This is when you really have to build your personal brand, so that gives you credibility, so whatever you post in your company, then they trust you. So I started heavily with my personal brand, you know, because I know how important that is. So in order for people to trust you, you need to really build a strong personal brand. I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm on mute. Okay, thanks for that, Miss Kate. In relation to that, Miss Kate, can you give us an overview for our startups to know where do you think your business or startup would be if you didn't spend enough time and money on branding and marketing?
You know, in the beginning, I when I started my spa, I didn't have any budget at all. So my the look and feel of my business, it looks low budget, right? And you can't attract, you can't force yourself to, you know, to be this great. I learned it the hard way. It took me a while to figure it out. This needs to, you know, I didn't get it, I didn't figure out right away. But you know, I think right now there's a lot of tools that you can use. You can create your own website, you can utilize Canva, you can hire Fiverr, just copied someone that's really good and re-engineered and do it your own. So I think that's the best way, because none of us, I mean, we don't have the budget. Like, trust me, my website in the beginning, I did it myself, it looks like crap. So find a company that kind of you can relate and kind of replicate it, but make it your own.
Thanks for that, Miss Kate. How about the incubatees? Do you have a specific question or do you want to consult anything about your startup to Miss Kate?
Yeah, I don't know what kind of, you know, company you guys are. Is this more tech or a different brand? What are the audience company? The tech.
I think we have
Okay.
one. Okay, I will read it for you, Miss Kate. Okay. Uh, this is from Piso hand sanitizer. Okay. Most startups use to the tagline "Tatak Lokal" as part of their marketing or branding. Does using this phrase more of a drawback in the long run, knowing that we are on our national or global stage with the internet, ma'am?
Yeah, so if you want to hit, I mean, even, I mean, right now, if you really stick to your local, you know, name or to talk local, it's like Tagalog. But if you want to, you know, people are more embracing of whatever your name is, right? As long as you have a strong branding and your marketing are on point, it doesn't really matter if you know, like for example, Van Dap. pastel. You can't barely pronounce the company name, but it's still people buy it, right? It sounds German. No Americans really like, what is that, right? But then people still eat it, right? I guess that's like a few that people really has a following. But if you really want to go global, you have to think that in the beginning. Are you going to be appealing to the US market or the European market? So you have to figure it out. I have one of the pitch deck that in front of my table, and it looks very Middle Eastern feel. So you have to be very careful about your company name. But I think to talk local, it's okay. People are wanting to embrace local thing. That's the in right now. Just you have to be very strong with your messaging. It's all about the branding and messaging in the end.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Kate. Did that answer your question, Hope? Okay, so it answered his question, ma'am. Okay, rather than typing, I would encourage our incubatees to talk directly or ask directly to Miss Kate, and then introduce yourself to her.
Yeah, I would love to see a
Yes.
face.
Okay. Any other questions from our incubatees?
I have a question.
Okay, go on.
Uh, my name is Kit Lawrence Nako. I believe we've talked last week
Oh,
from
hi.
Ihatid. I have a question regarding branding. Does 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 it change or quote unquote evolve over time? Is that a possibility? Like the question earlier about being branded local, but eventually you have to go to other countries. So is that something that should happen or an eventuality? I'm not sure.
Okay, so when you start a company, you really have to figure out what really is your main direction of your company. Are you going to stay local? You need to figure that out in the beginning, because it's hard when you started your marketing and then you're switching. That's costly for you, right? So you need to figure out your goal. If you want to attack in a global scale, like everywhere, you have to make sure that your branding and messaging or logos are appealing to all that market. You have to think that what is your end goal of your company? Do you want to be global or you want to stay local? So you have to think of that, because that really matters. For example, I have to do this. My real name in the Philippines is Marisol. It's not Kate. I have to change my name to appeal in the US market. And I think that's a bold move for me. And I think it's the smartest thing for me. But I did that.
Thank you for the advice.
Okay, any other questions from our incubatees? Thanks, Kit. I think they are quite shy, Miss Kate. Okay.
No, you know
Uh,
what? I can take Cebuana, or like I'm fine.
okay.
Don't be shy.
Okay. Miss Kate, sige. I'll ask na lang. Baka later on they will have questions. So baka nahihiya pa for now. Okay. Miss Kate, I have mentioned about creating relationship with influencers. Okay, but nung when you started pa lang, yung dili pa siya masyadong kilala yung brand, yung name ng yung business. How do you create relationship with influencers, or how do you convince them to endorse your brand?
You know what? I actually don't. You don't have to go jump right away. Kind of get to know them in a personal level. Again, you have to do it the right way. You can't be creepy, and then they really could feel like you're just there because you wanted them to promote your brand, right? So again, be very careful about building a relationship. You have to do it the right way. I didn't explain it right away that we were friends, we hang out in the beginning. we build each other's trust. I'm not really there if, I didn't ask it right away, because that could turn off people. Yeah, that really does. So just like anything in the world, there's 12 stages of intimacy, right? You have to ask someone else, you have to ask someone first for a coffee, you go on a date, and then you take them to marriage, right? Not like you go out for a coffee and you ask them for marriage. Like, there's so many steps. So it's the same thing as how you build relationship and how you promote your brand. Your customers buying journey is the same thing.
Okay, that is noted, Miss Kate. So, do the influencers, ano, ask for free stay in return for media mileage?
In the beginning, they were actually a paying client. They were not. They paid in the beginning, and I thanked them for staying, and I asked them, how was their stay, and they said they were having a good time. Say, then I offer them the next time, if if you want to come back, then there's something we can do about it, and they're fine with it. But it's good too, because I caught them when they were just starting. That's the key, because I think now they're a little bit more popular, so it's harder. So again, just be nice to everyone. You don't know who they are, right? Like, but really build a good relationship, be very genuine about it, and again, remember the 12 stages of intimacy. It's so important.
Okay, that's a nice takeaway, Miss Kate. Okay. Aside from influencers, were you able to get investors thanks to your successful branding and marketing strategy?
No, I didn't get any investor. I did it my own. I built it brick by brick, but I was very strategic about it. Yeah, I did spend a lot of money into building a resort, but I, you know, I didn't, it was all my money. But I
Okay.
would be open for investor in the future, but not right now, but it needs to be in the right deal.
Yes, okay. Copy, Miss Kate. Okay. I think I have also a question about the pandemic. I think anyone can relate because of our current situation. Okay. During the pandemic, how are you able to cope up, Miss Kate? Uh, did you still manage your product to market your products and services despite the pandemic? How were you
We
able to
are,
do it?
yeah, the resort in Camiguin were actually shut down. So we're hurting really bad. We're down by 98% on sales. Locals are not our target audience. They're all from all over the world. So we're really hurting. But it is enough to keep my staff. It is enough to cover the maintenance. So I'm just happy with that. I'm just happy the fact that I don't have to lay off people. So they're just trying to be creative, do something what they can do now by just attracting locals. And so we really have to shift our marketing strategy, because we never really have to promote it to local, but we're switching it right the last since March. So we made a lot of tweaking into our messaging and branding and who we target for, because Camino Island still shut down, no one can get in. So we have to figure out while we're still shut down.
Okay, that's nice to know, Miss Kate. Kasi, diba, we know that the recreation or leisure sector was greatly affected. So,
Hmm.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Hi, Kate. This is Richard. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, fine. Thanks. I just have a question regarding controversy. Does adding a controversy in your brand add value? Like, for instance, our brand is dirt bag. So I'm sure you know what it means in
Yeah.
literally, right? But it's our industry is laundry, so it also relates to our industry. But at the same time, the brand name itself is controversial. Believe me, in application for business permit in SEC, it has been rejected like 10 times, even though how many times we have to add something in it. So it was never accepted.
Hmm.
But does it have any appeal, do you think, to the market, if ever?
The funny thing is, I have a business that I call it a dirt bag, and it's making really good money. So, so if if you think you have traction and people embrace it, you have to really, know if your market are really embracing about the name. Then who cares about the name, right? If you can get it and make it work, again, it's all about the storytelling and your branding. Yeah, the name has, if I did, were you able to get a were you able to get your papers at all, or is still stuck? Are you still struggling?
Yeah, we did, but it's a crazy name. We just added some technology, tech names in it just to make it pass, and then we add PH, Dirtbag PH. That's on the trade name only, but on the registered name, it's totally different. It's okay, but that's a different challenge because initially when we tried to come up with this name and we asked our friends about it, so I don't know, maybe they're just trying to sound smart, but they're telling us that it might not work because the name itself, it's considered vulgar. So, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's funny though if you think about it. If you're trying to be funny about your brand and that's what you wanted to appeal, but like, again, if that what you wanted for your brand, you had to figure that out. Is that you really what you wanted to be? You need to ask that question.
thanks. But yeah, for me, yeah, you're right. At some point, it doesn't really matter. We are getting good traction anyhow. Um, the brand itself, especially foreigners who are part of my network, are commenting about it. Sometimes it's it has a more good than bad comment. So I think it's working. I just want to ask your opinion about it because in the landscape of branding, you are more like expert about it. So
Yeah, if you get traction and at the end of the day, if people are buying, they don't care about the name. It's kind of funny. If you're seeing traction, people are embracing it, and you don't, it doesn't bother you, then why not?
thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dirtbag. Any others? Okay. So, Kanara Miss Kate. Okay. Uh, Miss Kate, since starting out your business, have you noticed any changes with the trends of branding and marketing, especially when it comes to startup?
The process, I mean, it's any brands, you have to go through the same thing, right? So you need to really hone down what your brand stand for. So like, yeah, I mean, Bintana is a so I tried to make it local as possible, even though my clientele are like, from the US or anywhere in the world. In the beginning I was a little bit kind of unsure about it, but I really wanted to keep it local because I really want to push a Filipino brand that could make it in a global market. But it was fine as long as the meaning and what they stand for. Again, it's at the end of the day, it's all about how you run your company, your service, and your people. The brand is just one aspect of it.
Okay, thanks for that, Miss Kate. This is just a quick question. I was just curious. If ever the customers encounter your brand, what do you associate your brand or what is your persona?
Okay, so let's say for example, we are a fun brand, the Bintana Separaíso brand. We're a company that embrace generosity. We have our tagline is we make your vacation better. That's our goal, and we stick to our branding of our hashtag calling BSP moments, because as a travel company or in hospitality, we are all about that, giving that moments to our customer. So those are some of the example that I can give you. I know there's
Okay.
different kind of persona in a branding
Yes.
world. I'm not super expert about like, your this. Like I know there's a test for that one, but I didn't even. I think I'm kind of all over the place. But I'm just talking about my brand, but I'm not super expert about the brand persona.
Okay. Miss Kate. Okay. Besides for your company name, what elements belong in your brand? Like icon symbolizing your business, or a brief tagline that states your value proposition.
Yeah, like my tagline is we make your vacation better. That's our tagline. Yeah, or like we sometimes call my team, they call each other the BSP tribe, because they're you want to be part of our tribe, and then everyone is part of our tribe. So we really tried to hit on those, the BSP moments and BSP tribe. Those are our brand identity.
Okay, Miss Kate. So, parang your tagline is part of your branding.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for me. How about the others? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, thrice. So, I think someone's unmuting. Or wala. Okay. So, I think that's it. Thank you, Miss Kate. That's it for our Q&A portion. I'll give back the virtual floor to Miss Shore.
Uh, I saw checkmate unmuting. Do you have any questions? You still have time to,
Yes,
address
ma'am.
some. All right, all right. You have the floor.
Uh, our planning to rebrand our product because at first we felt that it the brand fits to our product, but over time we faced the harsh reality that it doesn't fit with our target customers. But we don't want to confuse our current users with a sudden change of change of brand identity. Uh, um, what can you give advice to uh, uh do we have to rebrand or stick muna to the uh current brand identity so that we don't lose those current customers or current users.
Okay, so what is your company exactly? Tell me.
Our company, Checkmate Educators Toolkit, it is a mobile application for the educators to simplify their test generation, uh, test checking of quizzes and exams, and
Okay.
also simplify their score computation. And uh, our current brand identity, we because we felt that it fits with our product. We felt that it has a lot of meaning, but over time we realized that it doesn't quite appeal to our current customers. We felt that uh, it's too edgy, too techy for them. Like we want a rebrand, but we have a customers na we don't want them to be shocked with another rebrand or something.
Okay, so figure it out. Why don't you ask your customer? Why don't you like send in an email like this is how they feel about it? Then y- maybe they're okay with your rebranding. If it's worth it for you to change to a new name, if you think you can make better, you can make more money into changing your name. So why not? You just have to ask your current customer, are they okay with that? But if you think it's worth it to change right now, because then it's harder for you to move and change, rebrand when you already have a lot of users. So figure out how much is your lost and how much you think you're going to gain in the future if what you're changing really appealing to your audience. So figure that out and ask.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help you?
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess we don't have any more questions from the incubatees. So before we conclude your session, Miss Kate, or even give a parting words, I'd like to ask you if you have during your startup journey, if you have anything you wish you knew at the time you were starting, what can you share it to them? I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a
okay.
lot actually. It's actually a lot. When you run, you in order for you to scale, you really have to make sure you're building this strong culture to your company. That's your rhythm to your staff, and as you grow, that's how your team make a decision, right? So make sure you have a strong culture. You have to make sure you have a working capital. That's your gas to your car, and you need to have gas to run your car. You need to create a really good product and make sure you're solving a problem. You know the reason why you're creating this product. You need to figure that out in the beginning, and you have to make sure your strategy, you're so fast that's you need to figure out y- how to grow your company and figure out growth. And you need to to hire the right people. If you hire the right people in the bus, they will go in the right direction. And you have to make sure people, no matter what you need, they need to be celebrated, they need to be accepted and shared. If you're so mean to your staff, you're not going to get it. Managing people is the same as, fish in the tank. You have to treat everyone nice. You can't get what you want and scale if people are unhappy working for you. So you have to think that.
All right, thank you, Miss Kate. So before we conclude your part of this session, any parting words before we
Yeah,
take a
so
virtual photo? Yeah, sure.
yeah, I really love that you guys are doing startup. Go for it. I know it's harder in the beginning. Get as much mentor as you can. I wish I had a mentor in the beginning. I could have saved a lot of mistakes. Trust me, I've been there. I don't know in the beginning how to run a company, but get as much mentorship as you can. Spend a lot of learning. There's a lot of resources out there. Don't hesitate to reach out, but you really need to take care of yourself. You can't be working 24/7. It's gonna cut you, and it's not very good. So make sure you have a good balance. Even though it's too impossible, you have to make sure you take care of yourself while running a startup.
All right. So thank you, Miss Kate. So I guess that's it for your part of our virtual fire session. So before we move on to the next part of our program, I'd like to request everyone to please turn on their cameras for the virtual group photo, which is for the documentation as well as for the updating of our social media posts. Okay. Okay. Miss Kate, can I ask you to stop your share screen so
Oh,
we
how do
can.
I? Oh, sorry. Okay.
All right. So thank you. So we can do the gallery view. Mm, full screen. All right. Hope, Kit, Jerisa. All right.
Sorry, wala ko camera sa computer. Good. Pasensya
Okay.
na.
Okay. All right. All right. So on three, 1, 2, 3, smile. All right. Thank you so much again, Miss Kate. It's an honor to have you here. By the way, guys, I hope we get to hear from Miss Kate even after this session. So I please keep posted for updates. So we're crossing our fingers for that. So thank you very much and uh, have a great weekend. Okay, I know it's still Friday there, right?
It's Friday. Yeah, anything that you
Oh,
guys need, I'll be really willing to give my time.
okay. All right.
Bye.
Thank you. All
Bye.
right. Bye bye. So, okay, wait lang. Share screen. Sorry. We have our next speaker online. We'll just ask first if Wael wants to go ahead with the talk or do we do it at 10 a.m.? Hi, Wa. Are
Hi,
you?
hi
Are
guys. Up to
you?
you. Up to you.
Hi.
Sure. If we can proceed, if you want, or you want a
All
bio
right.
break first. Yeah.
Pwede. Actually, nag-bio break na kami kasi we weren't able to do the first part of the session because of a blackout. So if okay sa'yo, we'll start at 9:45, then we'll end your session at 10:45 then.
That would be great. Yep.
All right. Okay. So I'll start with the introduction. I'll just share my screen for a moment. Okay. Two. All right, guys. So our last part of our virtual session, and definitely not the least, is a lecture talk from a very good friend of mine who is also an expert when it comes to branding and marketing. Wael Canoy, who earned his degree in management accounting at Xavier University Ateneo de Cagayan, is the category marketing manager for Southeast Asia of Unilever Food Solutions. His experience and continuous learning has earned him recognitions as a multi-awarded sustainability champion since 2016, a brand builder for managing the dressings category of Southeast Asia, and developing local mix innovation roadmap for smart cooking in the Philippines, and a disruptive digital marketeer for piloting influencer partnerships for music marketing in YouTube. He won the YouTube ad awards in 2017, 2018, and 2019. In addition to that, he is an entrepreneur that has conducted marketing consultancies for SMEs and startups and even founded ghost kitchens such as Invento and Uni Patisserie. So everyone, please give a round of virtual applause as I give for our third guest speaker as I give the floor to him. Everyone, Wael Canoy.
Good morning, everyone. How are you all? Kamusta?
Good morning.
Fine. Good
Morning, sir.
morning.
Doing great.
Great. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, cool. All right. So before I start, I'd like to first get a good sense of how you guys are today. So, kamusta? Are you feeling okay? A bit down? Happy? How are you all? How are your emotions today?
Ako probably based on the weather, it's pretty gloomy. Okay. Okay. But so far so good.
For
Nice.
me, it's Saturday, so it's better than any weekdays.
Definitely. I agree. But weekends are different now, no? It's not as exciting anymore. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the reason why I asked you guys about how you are emotionally, because today is more than my discussion about branding. It's really about a sense check as well on how humans are feeling or emotional, how humans are being emotional beings, and how that reality affects a lot of things around us, especially businesses. To one of my biggest surprise when I started doing marketing, I realized that way back in university, we learn a lot of theories, we learn about science, about how to get people to buy your products and brands. But then I realized that that journey is actually a completely, I would say, less rational journey than I thought. In other words, getting people to buy your product or patronize your brand is a completely emotional experience altogether. And I'll be sharing that later on as to why. So allow me today to share to you how to turn your startup businesses into big brands. Brands that you never thought you could achieve, brands that you never thought you could make, brands that you never thought non-Filipinos or foreign markets could patronize. Yeah. In other words, let's think big, let's think global, and think outside the box, and be hopefully be inspired by the different things that we'll be tackling on today. Any questions so far? None? All right. So let me to introduce myself. So Shore gave you a bit of a flavor on who I really am, but just to show you how my name is correctly spelled. It's actually spelled with a U, but it's pronounced with a W. So it's a consonant, it's a vowel that behaves like a consonant. So it's Uael Canoy. I graduated from Xavier University. I am born and raised in Cagayan de Oro City. So I am a local, but bulk of my professional experience has been spent outside Cagayan de Oro City. So I've been working with Unilever for the past 10 years now, but that isn't my first job. I've been with EPLDT before I went to Unilever. I am very active in social media. So you can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and I also have my own passion Instagram page called Lutong Canoy because I'm very fond of cooking. So going back to Unilever, I'm based in Metro Manila. I'm currently doing marketing work for one of the biggest brands globally, Canor, Ladies' Choice, to name a few. So I've worked with a lot of projects spanning around the globe in Singapore, Indonesia, Japan, UK, and the Netherlands, again, to name a few. My expertise really is based on marketing. And as you know, the past 5 years is really the renaissance of digital marketing. As you can see here, bulk of my continuous learning is really spent on digital marketing. But that doesn't mean I have been off touch of my heritage sweet spot, which is branding and marketing at the same time leadership. So aside from graduating from Xavier, I've taken a lot of continuous learning courses from the Asian Institute of Management at Ateneo de Manila University and some courses on culinary from Le Cordon Bleu at Ateneo de Manila University. So basically that's me, Wael Canoy. So before we talk about what branding is, maybe we need to clear up what are the preconceived notions about what a brand really is. And a lot of us, most often than not, perceive brands as something that is more tangible, right? Something that we see, we hear every day. So people rightfully would associate brands as something that is more of a product, a marketing initiative, a value, a strategy, design, identity, trust that they get from their people, advertising initiatives that we do on the market. But you'll be surprised that marketing is that, but that's not branding. Therefore, brand is not that. It's not your logo. It's not your strategy. It's not your advertising, not your identity. It's not your trust that you get from your people. It's not the marketing work that you do. It's not the design or the value that you create out of it. So it begs the question, what is it? But before we answer that, I think the bigger question that we need to ask first is, why would you spend your Saturday morning understanding such an unassuming topic as branding? In other words, and forgive me for my language, why should I give AF? AF. It's because it sells. It actually is the source of your revenue. It generates the cash that you need to fund your startup. It also is the reason why you can attract investors. It's actually your currency. Without your brands, it's hard to evaluate your organization. And of course, it is your second most valuable asset, second to your people. So, why do we need to learn what branding is and why should we take prudence in growing it? It's because of these reasons. So then, let's look at the numbers. If you think that feelings are not enough to convince us of why branding is important, let's try to look at these numbers. Based on the research recently conducted by Nielsen in relation to how people, Pinoys in particular, perceive brands and how it affects their buying behavior, 96% of Filipinos prefer branded options in supermarkets. So every time they see a product in the supermarket, they would prefer something that is branded, meaning it has a name, it has an image, which I will explain later on. It's because 88% of Filipinos associate brands with quality. So see, even though the product is, say, for example, low quality, as long as it is branded, it changes the conversation altogether. Third is 77% of Pinoys actually respond to new brands. So if you introduce a new product or a service in the market and it is branded, most likely you will be able to rekindle the interest of your market because of a simple branding. 63% of Filipinos consider themselves as brand loyalists, although of course they buy a competitor brand from time to time, but they claim that they always go back to their heritage brands that they've always loved. 64% of millennials, tayo, basically, buy brands that stand for a cause, meaning it's not just a product, it's not just a service, it has to stand for something bigger. It is not afraid to tackle issues that affects them, may it be societal, environmental, social, spiritual, personal, etc. For as long as brands stand for something bigger, there is higher propensity for millennials to patronize that brand. And 56% of them are actually willing to pay more for brands that not only stand for a cause, but also say that they are helping solve these issues. So hindi lang enough that they believe on a cause, but they also would like to see these brands in action. They're actually doing something to stand for those causes. 52% are actually partial about local brands. Unfortunately, a lot of us are quite judgmental around local brands, maybe because of our experiences in the past where we saw that, local brands are subpar in terms of quality or experience. But good to note, a lot of startups, you guys, are changing the dynamics around that notion. We've seen a lot of good quality local brands sprouting here and there. And thanks to fearless startups that are changing the game in the business environment. 77% of Filipinos are actually enthusiastic about new and exciting local brands. So there's hope, yeah? So it doesn't mean that Filipinos are more partial about local brands, but actually, quite recently, maybe because of improved experiences in product delivery, they are now quite excited about what local players can bring to the table. 52% are actually willing to pay more for a new brand. So sabi nila, okay, if the brand is new, I can actually try. I have no issue paying more. And that should signal to you guys that it's an opportunity to make money when you introduce a new brand in the market. And lastly, 60%, however, are still brand and price conscious. So these numbers are very telling on how Filipinos in general perceive brands. And if you look at the number on average, it means that more than at least more than half, if not majority of the Filipinos do want their products, services branded. Yeah, I hope that sticks. Majority of Filipinos do want their products and services branded. So, a brand seems to be a very important thing. However, what the hell is a brand? What the hell is it? Yeah? A brand, by technicality, is defined as consumers' perception about a product or service or organization. Take note of the word perception. It's completely based on personal judgment. Yeah, there's no science basically to it, but it doesn't mean that science cannot be used in shaping people's perceptions around your brand. Simply put, it's gut feel. Brands are born out of people's gut feel or perception around your brand. For this discussion in particular, I want all of you guys to focus on the word feel. Why? Because you would know, obviously, that branding and how people respond to these signals coming from brands are largely driven by emotive factors. Emotive meaning emotions. So there comes feelings, associations, beliefs, and judgments. So when you see something from a billboard and probably you saw that the color they use in their billboard is your favorite color, say pink, there's higher propensity for you to patronize that brand. The same way that when dog lovers or pet owners would see a pet on a billboard or in a advertising material on TV, there is perception automatically. There is association that that brand is pet friendly, family friendly, yeah, harmless to say the least, or cute. It also would affect to a certain extent our cultural beliefs. So in China, brands with more colorful presentations are more likely to attract new customers versus brands that are heavily branded on the color black, because black is a signal for them for bad luck or mourning. Yeah. So these signals, these truths from people are very important factors to consider when we come up with our own brand or be mindful of when we create our own brand. So it would suffice rather, that the decision for people to act on something is mainly driven by their feelings more than their rational cerebral approaches to decision making. Feeling has, in fact, 1.5 more impact than things born out of thinking or overthinking. Yeah. So, in other words, it's important to remember that people act on feelings either by purchasing something, deciding to be loyal to something, or pushing for an advocacy. It's because they listen more to their gut more than what their mind is really telling them. That's a fact, and let's absorb that. Any reaction so far? Anyway, guys, you can ask me any question. Feel free to ask questions as I go, because I would want this session to be very interactive. So if you have clarifications, fire away. And speaking of, any clarifications on this controversial fact. Okay. All right. So we know that brands are important. We know that brands have the power to make an impact to our business, have the power to grow our organizations and grow and create wealth out of it. So it's all obviously very important. The bigger question now is, where do we start in terms of making our own brand? First step is to identify your big idea. Now, I've already explained the importance of why brands are needed in our world. Let's now move on to the phase where we would start thinking on how to create our own brands. Yeah. In order for us to do that, you need to start identifying your big idea. And coming up with a big idea, I would be very honest with you, is the most laborious process in brand creation or brand development. One will need to answer a lot of questions as we go. And these questions, I would say, are quite existential in nature. So dapat talaga sobrang deep dive, a lot of questions, big questions to ask. So that's why it's important that after this session, if you're really keen on developing or creating your own brand, I would highly recommend that you work with a solid team that you believe and trust in, and a team that believes in the perception, ideals, visions, and goals of your organization so you guys can craft it collectively. So going back to the question, what's a big idea? The big idea is your goal put into action. The first question to ask here is about human truth. I've mentioned a while ago that humans are very judgmental, emotional, and they're one of the key drivers for their purchase is driven emotionally. Yeah, it's an emotive journey. So it's also important that to ask the question about what is that moment when your target market, the persons that you're talking to, will need you or your brand. Yeah, what is that? It is that moment that you want to glorify your brand, that it is the most needed thing in the world for that specific moment. Yeah. An example of this is what Caliber, a Filipino startup, did very well. So their moment of truth is jobs for fresh graduates created at the time or even before they are graduating. So compared to, say, for example, LinkedIn, Caliber specializes on noobs or meaning newbies in the market, fresh graduates or underskilled individuals who may not have the same caliber, yeah, as more experienced counterparts in the corporate world. So what Caliber specializes on is to target fresh graduates, size up their skills, their capabilities, and match them with opportunities that is best suited to their caliber. And if there are gaps in their overall skills mapping, they also offer a lot of trainings to make sure that these people are upskilled. So that's a specialization of Caliber, a brilliant listening to human truth, and a very spot on um, business model that addresses a need at a specific moment, which is before graduation or at the moment of graduation. Yeah. The second is to ask the question about product truth. When you have already developed your minimum valuable product, um, your prototype, to say the least, that you wanted to land in market. I think the important question that you need to ask is what makes my product, the product of my startup, the most reasonable solution to my customers' needs. I would suggest that when you try to answer this question, you would go out and interview people whom you intend to serve. Yeah, identify deeply and more intimately what is your target market and how can I satisfy the needs of my target market. Yeah, one of the most brilliant startups that I've seen is very spot on again in pinning product truth is Squad Zip. Not so sure if you're familiar. It's also a Filipino startup. And they specialize on online offline collaboration platform for a lot of field teams on the go. So think of it as an internal social media where line managers, bosses, or the executive management team wouldn't wait for town hall meetings or quarterly meetings to get updates from their teams, because updates are being done real time. So it saves a lot of time. It makes the team, it gives that a closer knit culture in the team. And it also spells out transparency and accountability across the organization. Brilliant, brilliant needs being addressed here by SquadZip. Another one is to identify your discriminator. And the key question to ask here is, what makes my products or services uniquely mine? Of course, there will always be competitors in the market. Of course, there will always be challengers out there. But the bigger question should be, am I aware that I have a unique quality that nobody else in the market can offer? Having said that, an example here is Rappler. I'm sure you know Rappler, founded by Maria Reza. But what makes Rappler unique? In around 4 or 5 years ago, when Rappler was launched, it is actually the first brand to claim as the social news network. Yeah. Before GMA and ABS-CBN even went to digital platforms, it was Rappler that dominated the platform. Yeah. And they get their news pieces, news bites through crowdsourced content. So instead of deploying journalists on the ground, they actually rely on tech savvy, woke individuals to provide content for them, newsworthy content. And because of that, they've been very successful. They managed to open a new branch outside the Philippines, Indonesia, for example, in just a span of 3 months after they launched in the Philippines. So they specialize in socially curated content. They have proven themselves to be the most digital savvy news network out in the market. And of course, the first to be actively playing on digital. So that's how Rappler established itself as a unique um, um, news network. Another thing will be to figure out what are the functional benefits that my product or service provide. So the key question to ask there is, what need or want can my product or service really address? Functional needs. So an example of this space is the another Filipino favorite of mine, Filipino startup, is called Trip Moba. So it's very catchy, right? Trip Moba, Tagalog. Trip Moba, gusto mo ba? And they specialize really on convenient travel bookings within the Philippines. So the name suggests that they are talking to Filipino travelers, regardless if it's really Filipino or foreign, but within the Philippines, planning their trips within the Philippines. So their the functional benefit that they really, their claim to fame is their functional benefit, which is really instant and convenient reservation. So normally the pain points of consumers is that it takes a lot of time to book and figure out where to stay. But Trip Moba curates options based on your behavior online, and based on your needs and wants, highly curated and personalized to you, and fast. Yeah. So, and it also helped create a community of travels that in return is sprucing up the local travel industry. Yep. So that's Trip Moba. Emotional benefits. So let's talk about emotional benefits. I think it's one of the most important factors to consider when creating a brand. And the key question to ask is, what is the emotional incentive that my customer will get from the products and services that I offer? How will they feel? How happy or elated or blissful will their experience be when they avail of your product and service? So a brilliant example, I think, at least in my generation, that when we experience this way back in college, where we have very limited budgets to fund for our uh, mobile conversations, would be Chica. Yeah. And the big idea of Chica is when you run out of load, but you still wanted to communicate to your friends. What should I do? The promise of Chica is to stay connected against all odds for as long as there is an internet cafe nearby, which is really not a problem before, right? So what it offers really is a chance to still communicate with your friends using your number, but not necessarily using your own phone, because you just have to log in your number into the Chica platform and you can freely send messages to people already. Think of it as the modern day messenger. But I still believe, despite of it this being I would say an obsolete platform, is still a highly relevant example of how brilliant they are in pinning down emotional benefits. Imagine that at a time when you just have to reply, it's like sobrang ihing-ihi ka na. Just have to go and there you saw a toilet. It delivers the same benefit here, giving you that chance to communicate when you need it the most, when you're kind of desperate. Yeah. So Chica did it quite brilliantly. Another thing to consider is your personality. What is that unique style and image that you take pride on? Yeah. I heard during the last session that some of you asked about what's your personality? What's your brand personality? I think that's a very important question to ask, really. What is it that, what kind of imagery do you want to embrace? It's somewhat connected to your own discriminator. Yeah. But this one is more on the intangible side of it, how you choose, how you intend to control people's perception around you. An example of this, I is one of my favorite examples really is Angkas. I'm not so sure if you've been following Angkas on Twitter or on Facebook, but you would see that Angkas really has a unique personality that it embraces. Aside from being a Jologs messaging, comms strategy, and more of Piloso Potasio type of comms out there, Angkas has a lot of humor in its branding, on top of the efficiency, speed, and calculated risks that it also embraces. So think of it as a cool tito who wants to establish itself being cool through jokes and humor, but also is being strict, playing a role as a second parent. Yeah. So that's what Angkas is being about. So it takes pride on its 99%, 99.99 safety record. LTFRB is contesting that actually, but they say we are that. So they take pride on that. And I think there's humor to it because a lot of consumer brands like soaps and even surface cleaners out there or even detergents are claiming this angle. So it's so funny that Angkas is trying to dip its finger on the halo effect of that memory structure that people have by bringing it into its own brand. Yeah, 99% safety record. It takes good safety, road safety to heart by pioneering handles, strategically situated at the belly portion or the bill section of the drivers. So the experience would still be funny, humorous, and safe. Yeah. So that's how Angkas embraces its brand with its own unique personality that is completely differentiated from how Grab, its direct competitor, or Gojek in Indonesia, is positioning themselves. Brilliant example here by Angkas. Last and closest to my heart is your purpose. A lot of companies in today are embracing the wokeness of its target market to make a brand of its own or to drive differentiation. And I would say it's not really the secret sauce to why some companies are successful, but it is a good choice that they are making to drive differentiation. Yeah. And the great question to ask here would be, what moral good can your product or service share to its stakeholders? So may it be customers, may it be consumers, suppliers, employees, etc. It is very encompassing. So a great example here is a local brand, and it's not really like the typical brand that it sells its own, but it actually collaborates with smaller suppliers to give them access to the market. So the brand that I know and I have personally experienced in Manila during Sunday markets in BGC, they call it the good trade. Yeah. And they take pride in saying, in owning this space, that everything and anything that is made with a zero waste mindset has a space in our brand, the good trade. So their business model basically is a pop-up store that they set up in strategically around the metro, and they offer products and services that commit to a zero waste mindset. So other than uplifting sustainable enterprises, they also drive a lot of moral good in the community that they operate in, such as donation drives, recycling initiatives, plastic collections, um, um, upcycling by repair of old usable stuff, um, which really creates a very good mindset and good halo effect and good karma, to say the least, to their community. I think the reason why I mentioned karma, because while we know that during the time of the pandemic, retail industry has really taken a huge hit because of significant reduction in foot traffic. But it's good to note that good trade is doing really well on digital because of the good the asset of goodwill that they had created in the market. Yeah, people felt the need to support the brand because they know that in doing so, it's creating more good for the community. So that's how that's a brilliant example of how you live, land, and bring to life a purposeful brand. So now that we know these key spaces that we need to ask ourselves when coming up with a big idea, and I've also mentioned that it is a very laborious process, try to do it, but don't do it alone because you don't have the monopoly of answers. Do it with a team. Do it with a team that believes in the same goal and mission. Do it with like minded people. Do it with people who are equally inspired as you in creating your own brand. And I assure you, it's not going to fail. Yeah. I may not know what your respective big ideas are, but I do know that it will work for you. So try to answer these questions. Try to go deep and try to ask big questions, not just to yourself, but to your stakeholders as well. Your consumers, your potential partners, stakeholders, suppliers, etc. And the more you do that, the more solid, sophisticated, sharp your big idea will be. So it's not the end. The next question that we need to ask is, how do I make a brand for my startup? Yes, I already asked the questions. Yes, I kind of know what my big idea is. But so what? What's next? It's a simple journey from here. There are only three things for you to consider in coming up with your actual brand. But these three things also entails a lot of thinking. Yeah, quite ironic for a very emotional journey. But first step is really to reflect on the name type, which I will discuss later on in detail. The second step will be to decide on the key message that you wanted or you intend to land. Yeah. What is that one big point that you want people to take out or remember from you? And the third and the most operational, I would say the most boring part of it is just to check ownability. Do I have the right? Can I still own the royalty or the imagery or the assets around the brand that I intend to make? Yeah. So first step, reflect on the name type. Actually, there are 7 name types that you can adopt for your brand. Some of you may have known some of these name types in your, if you have taken up marketing or branding in college, or if you have done a lot of workshops on marketing as well. I'm sure this is not new, but this is a different approach. The 7 types that I'm presenting to you today is quite of a recent reshape of a framework globally from a lot of marketing experts that we work on in Unilever. And these are the types of names that you can adopt for yourself, and which should be based basically on how you intend to position yourself as a brand. So the first is eponymous, second is descriptive, third is acronymic, Fourth is suggestive. Five is associative. Six is non-English. And seven is abstract. So seven. Let's start with eponymous. Eponymous basically is a brand type that is named after real persons, may it be living or dead, either as they are business icons, they are your founders, or associated with celebrities whose values, whose attributes, characteristics, or something that you think fits well for your identity. Yeah. So an example of an eponymous brand type is Gaisano, named after its founder, Gaisano family. Lim Kai. So Parasat is also a good example, although Parasat is a bit of a different type. It's a mix of eponymous and associative. But Parasat is actually a play of words that combines the word Paras, which is the real family name of the family owner who founded the organization, and Sat, which is short for satellite. Yeah. Another example here is our very own Xavier University, named after Saint Francis Xavier. You cannot say the same for Ateneo de Manila because they choose to brand themselves as Ateneo de Manila, not Saint Ignatius University, which is, by the way, the original plan for them. Our childhood brand, which is a great example, is Disney. And for some of you who do avail of her services, is the Bello Essentials or the Bello Medical Group, named after Dr. Vicky Bello. So these are examples of eponymous type, named after real human beings, may they be living or dead, just to associate a lot of characteristics that these people embody, yeah, or the organization is proud of. A second example is descriptive, which is a very straightforward naming convention. It is a very traditional use of branding. It basically calls out what the organization offers, aka Philippine Airlines, the flag carrier of the Philippines, yeah, or Eco Store, a store that has eco-friendly products, or Dunkin' Donuts, donuts intended to be dunked in coffee, yeah, or Home Depot, a store or a depot intended for products relevant to your home. Yeah, so it's, I wouldn't say boring, but it's very straightforward. The third is acronymic, which is from its root word, acronyms, or shortened versions of a word, a phrase, or a statement. Famous examples would be BPI, BMW, FICO, Sepalco, SM, KFC, you know the drill. But I think the bigger curiosity that we need to address here is, why do brands do this? First and foremost, it's quite a mouthful if you insist on branding yourself as First Community Cooperative. Yeah, that's why they figured out FICO, so that people can just say it in 2 syllables. So it suggests that for people to remember you, it has to be within 2 to 3 syllables, translated to 2 to 3 letters or more, as long as, so that's a rule of thumb, 2 to 3 syllables, 2 to 3 letters, as long as it is not a mouthful. Yeah. Another intention why companies do this is to rebrand themselves when they are entering new markets that are not familiar with their heritage. So an example will be BPI. Basically, BPI historically is a local brand in the Philippines by virtue of it being the Bank of the Philippine Islands. But when it started trading or tapping into globalized banking, it needed a name that will resonate to a non-Filipino audience by just positioning itself as an acronym like BPI. It basically borrowed the strategy of HSBC, which used to be a local bank of Hong Kong and China, because it is Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. It rebranded itself to HSBC when it ventured into foreign markets outside China, mainland, and Hong Kong. So that's acronymic. The fourth would be suggestive type. These are the play of words coming from either real, compounded, or composite words, or invented words that resonate a bit of meaning into it. Yeah. So real would it be Amazon is a good example. Amazon is named after one of the longest rivers in the world, which suggests that the length of Amazon is associated with the length of inventory or assortment that the shopping platform has. Yeah, that's Amazon. Grab is the word grab, but it also suggests that booking or getting hailing a cab is as easy as if you're just grabbing something. Yeah. Carnation is a common brand. We use it for our salads. It doesn't salads, fruit salad. Obviously, carnation is not a fruit, it's a flower. But what it tells us is that the quality of its milk is high quality and rare, as rare and good quality as a carnation rose that you can originally can find it only in select European destinations. Yeah, so it should be aspirational, higher quality milk. Composite is a combination of two or more words put into one, which should resonate a combined meaning of both words. So local example could be street by. So it's combination of street and standby, which kind of mean that you can grab a lot of food items or anything from the street um, without necessarily paying so much, exerting so much effort like a standby. Bitcoin is a combination of coin and bit, the computer bit. It's just the baseline of processing unit for computers. So it means that you generate wealth by exploiting the bit resources, mining the bit resources in a different environment, the computer world. Quick wire is an example of doing connecting with speed. Same with Metro Deal, having sulet deals within the metro, basically. And invented words are these words do not exist in the dictionary. They do exist in cultural dictionaries, but not in Webster, the formal dictionary. So an example of this is actually Lazada um, and Pinterest. Sorry, not Lazada. Well, I'm not so sure, but Shopee and Pinterest, yeah, are good examples of this brand names. All right, associative. Uh, it basically associates the literal meaning of the word into the aspirational qualities of what the product or service can offer, or the effect of which to its consumer. So examples of which is carefree, um, feminine pads, because probably wearing it is as simple as carefree feeling. Yeah. Cobra energy drink. It's fierce. It's intimidating. It's very manly. Yeah, because you see a lot of uh, men who are into brawly men may have tattoos of a cobra, something like that. The association is very strong. A cute example is master, right? Master, sikreto ng mga guwapo. Master is being used as an endearment term for guys that we respect. We use it in calling friends, our bosses, or even our idols. Master, kamusta? Yeah. Trust, an interesting example. Condom. We know why it works as a brand because you're selling a condom and you know the risks. Netflix is a good example. And Sulit.com, very straightforward, but also associates the deals that you get from the buying platform. So a lot of non-English types on the table are Empleo, Educación, Hulu, Angkas, Camiseta, Oishi. And just to name a few, Empleo basically is a local word for employment. Hulu use is a Chinese word that describes a container where you store a lot of your valuable belongings. Yeah, so Hulu is a storage service company that stores important stuff for you. I've mentioned about angkas, camiseta, suggestive of clothing. Oishi is Japanese for delicious, and Aman is a hotel brand that takes pride in saying that they are a brand that offers a unique experience on tranquility, peace, exclusivity, etc. So brilliant examples here. And lastly, abstract type. So these are brands that does not necessarily mean anything, but they are very powerful brands, and that's exactly the point, to invent a word that nobody would recognize when it is launched in the market. But they take advantage of their history, their heritage, and go from strength to strength in building this brand. It's important to note that these brand entails are very fearless because again, it's risky because nobody knows the meaning, face value meaning of these brands. But it requires a lot of brand building through the years to establish its importance and strength. Because its ultimate goal is to create a powerful impact in imagery to its consumers. So examples of which would be Starbucks, Krispy Kreme. What does Krispy Kreme mean? Is there even such a thing as a Krispy Kreme? But they completely, developed the brand to as a very unique brand in the market. Rolex, Kodak, Google, and Apple. What does Apple mean when they're not into the fresh produce market, really? So it's a combination of them as being associated to Newton, a very intelligent person, and it's designed with simplicity. So it wants to associate itself with that functional simplicity imagery, that should resonate to their consumers. Yeah. So those are the 7 types of brand names that you can explore and reflect later on. But it's important that don't just choose. Discuss amongst yourself what kind of name would best represent your brand. Next step will be to decide on the key message. Yeah, so there are 2 considerations to it. So what is the key message that you wanted really your brand to convey? So 2 types. One is descriptive and functional. The other is idealistic and emotional. On the descriptive bit, it's very straightforward, just like the descriptive and functional benefits that we have called out a while ago. And there are 3 routes when you intend to name your brand. So it could be answering who, or what, or where. So who could be about real persons or your founders like JP Morgan or Dell. So very descriptive, very, very functional. And what could be about your Microsoft platform, yeah, or SAP, which basically is German for software and processing computers. It's a long word. It's acronymic, but it's also very functional in nature. And in terms of where or places associated, so where do you want, what kind of experience, that where can people experience this experience that you're selling, would you want to associate your brand with? So for example, Mont Abo for massage, yeah, or the Bukidnon Milk Company, because Bukidnon really is known for its agricultural prowess. The second will be on idealistic and emotional. This is where most powerful and successful brands really, and quite exciting brands, would want to position themselves in idealistic and emotional. So they are associative in nature. They borrow the characteristics of the icons that they use to convey a bigger promise or aspiration. So a few examples here would be Nike. Basically, Nike is a goddess of one of the Olympians in the Greek mythology. And they're basically telling us to go beyond. Check. Keep on pushing yourself, going higher, breaking your limits, setting your personal records. It's all about personal performance. GoPro is telling us to hero our journey, to be to become heroes of our own selves, to show to the world what kind of limits or endurance we have endured captured on film. So it's all about personal heroism. Red Bull, obviously, here you can see two bulls directly going against each other. And with the color red, that resonates strength, fierceness, hot temperament. Yeah, it's all about fearless endurance, having the ability to conquer one's own fear, and be maniac about it. Yeah, so all of their campaigns, if you notice, are really about conquering one's fear, jumping at an 80-foot height, or going bungee jumping, or a lot of extreme sport examples in the campaigns. That's how Red Bull is positioning itself. As I've mentioned, Apple is all about clever simplicity. Rexona is all about maximum performance, just like Nike. Check. And Amazon is, as I've mentioned, is all about associating itself with one of the longest rivers in the planet. But if you notice the logo of Amazon, it actually has an arrow from starting from A going to Z. So it's A to Z, meaning it's so complete you can't ask for anything more. But quite creatively, how the arrow is being executed here is like a smile. So smiling human being. So it connotes friendliness of its staff, quality service, doing business with a smile. So very brilliant examples here. Now we have already reflected on what potential names we can use. Now we kind of know what kind of key message you want our brand to convey. Now comes the operational part. And I think I would say this is quite easy. Once you have figured out what kind of brand you intend to use, all you have to do is to check if you can, sorry, that's not reflected, check if you can actually own the brand. And these are government agencies locally that you can actually sense check with. So you have DTI, SEC, the Patents Office, and FDA to check if there are conflicts in the names or brands that you have chosen to go with. Cool. And in terms of owning different components of your brand assets, like a website, a Instagram handle, etc., I'm sure you guys are quite tech savvy. You just have to check the internet if it exists or not. A good example here would be how Google's parent company Alphabet did it. Yeah. So Alphabet for me is a very brilliant brand in itself. Alphabet, it connotes, just like Amazon, A to Z, it connotes completeness. They own a lot of companies that provide a lot of experiences and benefits for humans to avail on, for its consumers to avail on. So that's Alphabet, very complete from A to Z. Another thing is also connote that it is a powerful conglomerate that when you invest in the market, you're actually making an alpha bet, a bet above all things. So it talks to its another stakeholder, which is its investors, that, be fearless, invest in us because we are a low risk organization. But one of the things that Alphabet discovered is when it already started, if it can own Alphabet as as a domain, when it checked for a website, BMW already owns the alphabet.com. www.alphabet.com is owned by BMW. Thanks to a lot of different social media routes to lead your consumers, right? You don't really need to have a domain alphabet.com or a website alphabet.com just to prove that you are legit. So what Google did or Alphabet did is to create its own website with a unique domain, www.abc.xyz. Yeah. And then it had the right to own that very unique space, yet still staying true to what its brand stands for. Okay, now I won't discuss the 7 tips to make your brand as authentic as it should, because the different tips here are quite straightforward. So when you have already figured out what kind of brand that you want to embrace, and you've already checked if it's something that you can own, try to assess if it's truly authentic, if it's truly reflective of the values that you embrace as an organization. So do communicate with honesty about your products and services, just like Angkas claiming its safety record. Communicate with honesty the environmental impact that and sustainability ambitions that your company is hitting. Yeah, acting with integrity all the time. No to hanky pankies because it can hurt your brand. Just like some of the brands that we have seen fall because of terrible mistakes done by their board of directors. And despite of being strong brands, obviously they suffered tremendously. So try to act with integrity all the time. Just do it. Don't try. Do it. Um, and being clear and true to what you believe in, being open and honest about the supply chain that you have, standing for more than just making money. Of course, purpose, living your purpose. Don't be too greedy, guys, because you need your community to grow with you, for you to grow really responsibly and sustainably. And seven, having a relevant and engaging story. What is your story that you want to share to the people that you serve? So that's basically it. That covers the discussion. In summary, we already know what a brand is. It's basically driven by emotion, and people act on feelings more than how they think. So let's take advantage of that natural tendency, but do not exploit it to your peril. Yeah? Come up with your big idea by asking key questions, important questions, to be able to form a very solid branding for yourself. And in the process of creating your own brand, try to reflect on the seven types of names of brand. Decide on the key message that you want your brand to resonate. And of course, check it if you can. And of course, try to be a more responsible organization by choosing to be authentic as a brand. Yeah. So again, just to remind everyone, why do I need to give AF for branding? Because it sells. It generates the cash that you need for your investment. It actually attracts more investors. It's your currency, especially when you intend to grow your organization further. And also, it's your second most valuable asset. Some companies in the world rely on their brands, the monetary value of their brands, to boost their income statements. Because in some markets, there is actual valuation of brands reflected in their financial statements. So it's a very important thing to have. Yeah. So before I end my presentation and before we go to Q&A, these are some of the books. So if you're really keen to doing further readings and a lot of research work on how else you can grow your brand, these are the books that I highly recommend. These are very helpful in my journey as well as a marketer, especially when I was still starting out. And one of my favorite books here is really Leaders Eat Last, because not only are we brand builders, we're actually the movers and shakers of our industry, whether we like it or not. And this book by Simon Sinek is a brilliant explanation on why leaders should care in every aspect of their business, not just the profit that they generate, but the value they make out of it, which include brands, which includes the branding of your organization, the branding of your people, and the personal branding of your management team. So it's a very good read for all of the business leaders out there like you guys. That ends my presentation. I hope you were able to get a lot of learnings from it. And I'll turn you over to Short.
All right. Thank you so much, Love, for that very informative. Pati ako nalingaw kay ko. So now we head into the Q&A portion, which will be facilitated by my teammate Ruchel.
Hi, Sir Wael. Am I pronouncing it right? Okay.
Yes.
Uh, okay. So guys, I might have gone too fast with the Q&A in our first session. So this time, I want to take it easy. I want to give the virtual floor to our incubatees. Okay. So, so again, kindly introduce yourself and then the startup you are representing for Sir Wael to know. Okay. First is I think Dirtbag has raised his hand. Sir? Okay. So, kanina sir, Dirtbag raised earlier that they had difficulties with their brand, probably because of the negative connotation. Do you think it's a good brand for an innovative laundry service despite their difficulties with regards to legal matters?
Again, I would like to emphasize that there's no bad brand. I think that's a good thing to remember. There's no bad brand. What we need to be cautious about if that word or that brand that you use would resonate to the people that you intend to serve. So if I were to look at the brand Dirtbag, my assumption is it's a playful use of a mockery, a word that mocks people, but it's also might be, this is just me, might be limiting in terms of who can appreciate such humor. Yeah, who can appreciate such humor. For example, just to contextualize, if the target market of Dirtbag is really um, single individuals who are away from their families, who may not have the time to wash their own clothes, um, and are living very busy lives, or probably males, they would be able to appreciate that one because dirtbag is commonly used by um, by males teasing each other with their barkada. You're such a dirtbag. But but if you're putting such a brand in the local setup, try to ask yourself: do locals use such word for their humor? Yeah, will Cagayanons use the word "you're such a dirtbag"? Or maybe it connotes too konyo, too social, aka expensive. Yeah. So there are a lot of feelings around it. There are a lot of emotions, perceptions, judgments that people can create out of your brand, which can either drive them to buy or avail of your service or stop them from even trying. Yeah. So I may not have the answer in relation to Dirtbag because you know your consumers better. But my gut feel is if it's not doing well as a brand, if people are not buying it, then baka there's merit to revisit the branding. And my suggestion on how to do that is create a focused group discussion, conduct an FGD, yeah, present a stimulus, and be very emotionally detached when you do that. Because sometimes the risk of us being founders of our own businesses, we have so much pride and emotional attachment to our own output, which is totally okay. But when you try to do these testings, and market research, you really have to detach your emotions because it's not your ego that you're selling, it's your brand. Yeah, it's your brand. So there's merit to detach your ego.
Okay, does that help Dirtbag, Sir RG, Sir Cards?
Hi, Wael, right? Hi, Wael. This is Richard. Yeah, thank you for your insights. I do appreciate it. However, yeah, I understand at the early stage, even prior to registering the brand or using the brand itself, that's one of our hesitations, no? But eventually, a year after, the brand itself does not relate much on the vulgarity of the word. Um, Rather, it becomes almost synonymous to laundry now because they're using it like, hey, i-dirtbag na na, i-dirtbag na na, something like that, no? So, siguro, for my part, even to be honest with everyone, apart from the song that was popularized early 90s, I think, I don't even have any idea what dirtbag means until someone pointed it out na this is the meaning. So I Googled it and then that's how I knew. So it's either I'm too dumb to know about it or maybe dirtbag is really not, as you mentioned, if it's in it local, I mean, it's not a widely used word to describe someone with vulgarity. So I don't think it affected much of our audience. No, so because somehow we want to relate it to sound cool as that, like, okay, your dirty laundry, put it in our bag, so it becomes dirt bag, so something like that. No, but we did feel that kanang, that issue before. We proceeded anyway, and then we're happy to prove some of our friends wrong about it. Now, yeah, I mean, just for your information, we also have gained good traction. I just wanted to ask, even the earlier speaker also, I wanted to ask only your some insights, because we are planning to expand more business in relation to logistics or cleaning service. And if we're not gonna use dirt bag, since dirt bag for us is a success, we're planning to find another controversial name that would, hopefully resonate also with our customers. But really, thank you for the feedback and the insights that you shared.
Yeah. You know what? I really like the fact that you're very firm in your brand personality, and that's what successful brands are should have. And I have no issue with actually the word dirtbag. What I wanted you to check probably is, first is, if it's, to your point, if it resonates well, then great. Keep on doing it. Keep on pushing it. What can work better would be to reinforce the branding with messaging. Yeah. So when you try to have, for example, your social media campaigns, reinforce your branding with equally vulgar yet humorous and functional messages online. For example, just like what I've mentioned, Angkas, yeah? Angkas has been a safety, more has already transcended from a safety advocate to a safety activist. Yeah. And the way it communicates, if you look at its Twitter, it's so funny because its branding is so true to the kind of messages that it puts out there. For example, it calls out people who are not holding the love handles. They call it the love handles here because they serve with love and it's for safety. So they call that love handles. So they said, wag mag-antupiling humawak sa love handle ng angkas driver nyo. Something like that. Because their branding is all about humor. Now, if your branding is all about acceptable bad boy imagery, a bad boy who can wash clothes, that will be very unique. Yeah. So imagine your brand as somebody who is astig, who may be bad boy, but who is very OC, malinis when it comes to clothes. Now he has the right to use the word dirtbag and call people, or call the incident of wearing dirty clothes an act of a dirtbag. Yeah, something like
Thanks.
that.
Yeah, actually, I can relate to what you just said regarding messaging, but it's another aspect of our brand, because if you take a look at our tagline, it's launder it right. So again, there's the word launder again. So in our messaging, it's like putting the word back to its rightful definition, right? Because if we say laundering, it's money, right? So that's a very common thing. So we put another controversy apart from dirtbag, the word launder it right, and then the messaging in our social media mostly, you know, use the word launder. So okay, laundering, we launder clothes, not money, or launder this, something like that. So I don't know what we thought about it, but our tagline even is a controversial, but still we did not violate because it's just an idiom, right, for laundering money. But the rightful definition of launder is really about clothes. So something like
Yeah,
that
I think that's
approach.
brilliant. I think that's brilliant. I think I would encourage you to keep on doing what you're doing. Um, Try to organize series of FGDs to keep on validating that it's really resonating to your target market, and make sure that your target market really would appreciate that kind of humor, because your branding should be your way in for them to avail of your service. Yeah, and if it's resonating, then all good. Yeah, good job.
Thanks, Well.
Okay, excellent, Dirtbag. Sir Wael, before I proceed with entertaining another question from another incubatee, mag-ano ako doon in relation sa maganda yung discussion nyo ni Sir RG, no? So, ayun nga, same with Sir RG, as startups that will eventually expand beyond Cagayan de Oro to national and even global level, what advice can you give the startups with regards to branding and marketing as they ease in a larger and more diverse market?
Okay, so there's no one size fits all principle when it comes to expansion. It doesn't mean that your brand is working for a specific geography or a specific demographic, then it's safe to assume that it will deliver the same result in another market. Yeah. So do not assume that it will work in the same way where it came from. Yeah. An example of which is Jollibee. Yeah. Jollibee, as we know, is the market leader and it's one of the biggest brand mainstays in the minds of Filipinos. It is associated with fun, satisfaction, delicious food, and childlike experience because even kids, they have the pester power to really convince their parents to eat at Jollibee when they can. So in other words, it has a very strong brand equity. The brand power is really high. Now, it's just but not logical for Jollibee to consider global expansion. Yep. And that's when they encountered a lot of learnings. When Jollibee opened its doors in the US, in Europe, it was a very miserable result at first. Of course, there's traction from the Filipino communities, but Filipino communities are minorities in those areas. Jollibee will need to tap into the bigger market for it to have business sense. Yep. So they realize that they're not just serving to Filipino consumers in the US or in Italy or in London, but they will need to talk to foreign customers. So when they learned that it's not the Filipino market in those countries are not enough, that's when they tried to rebrand themselves, and that's evidenced by the unique menu options that they offer. Yeah. So in the US, for example, Jollibee rebranded a lot of its products to suit the US market. For example, you cannot find a palabok in their menu in the US. They call it the Fiesta noodles, just so people will understand or will have a judgment or an association on what kind of experience these noodles can offer because virtually they are unfamiliar with it. Yeah, what is that white rice noodle with a gooey shit like sauce on top? It's not visually appealing, and we need to be honest about it. Yeah. So they decided to rebrand it from Palabok to Fiesta Noodles, which upon doing so, it changed the game. Yeah. A lot of foreign customers were now more intrigued on what it is because of its intriguing name. So that's an example of adjusting to a certain market, and understanding your unique market and never assuming that by transference your success locally would be brought or exported. You cannot export the same success that you have locally. Another thing that Jollibee did is to because Americans or Europeans are used to bigger portions, and we know that Filipino portions are way smaller than what Americans or Europeans expect. So they changed their options in the US. So the Yum Burger, the Yum Burger offering in the US is actually your Big Mac in the Big Mac, your Aloha ish or Champ Burger in the Philippines, and that became the baseline. The large size cups of Philippines became the small size in the US. So just so it resonates to its own market.
Okay, so that was nice, Sir Roel. That was very helpful. So a follow-up question, Sir Roel. Do you think it is wise that they use a new brand if they're expanding to neighboring cities? How does this affect the startup's branding and marketing strategies?
Well, so there are two things that I would like to dabble on, no, two issues that I would like to go through with that question. The first is to your question na, do I need to rebrand or reposition myself when I enter a new market? Um, it depends on what the market is telling you. So you really need to study the market. So again, you need to do some stimulus work. You need to do some FGDs. You need to do some social scans. Try to introduce your brand. If it if it scores highly with the locals, then you can. It's a matter of plugging it in kaagad. But if it doesn't, so in the case of my example kanina on Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, when they were trying to expand in the 1990s, early 1990s, from China to other countries, when at that time, China wasn't an economic powerhouse yet. So the perception of a Chinese bank in a European market isn't well received. Yeah. Because it was positioning itself as Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank. But when HSBC was introduced, a rebranded version of Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation to HSBC, it now looks, feels, and behaves like a JP Morgan or a Citibank or a Deutsche, for example. It now is perceived like a European bank, and that's when it started gaining traction. Yeah. So there's no black and white answer to your question. Should I rebrand? Should I keep? It really depends on what your target market is telling you. Yeah. Another point that I would want to go into would be when your strategy is about growing your brand, is market expansion the answer? You have to reflect on that because it's not necessarily the answer. It could be, but it's not necessarily the answer. Think of it this way: market expansion is like growing your brand from scratch. Yep. And when you grow your brand from scratch, it entails a lot of investments, it entails a lot of brand building that you need to do, which is the same effort that you have invested when you were still starting out. Are you willing to do that again in a different market? So before you go for expansion, ask yourself, have I saturated my market enough that I will need to conquer a new market? Just some thoughts to ponder on.
Okay, thank you, Sir Roel. Okay, so now let's head on to a question from our incubatees. So, anyone?
Hello.
Okay.
Hi,
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Ikaw,
I'm
kamusta?
I'm Kit Nak. I'm doing great. My name is Kit Nakwa. I'm from b.i.t.e.s, startup here in CDO. Um, I noticed that some brands they have when you mentioned messaging earlier, I was kind of struggling to imagine what kind of messaging or maybe I have the word mixed up, but I noticed kasi with a lot of brands they have a mascot or a character, something that people can anchor or can identify like a person. And for our kind of for the brand that we have, we chose a word kasi a pun that that that's a verb. So it's kind of I mean, it's easier like food panda, no? It's a noun. It's a name of an animal, so it's easy to to attach a mascot to that. And it doesn't have to be a mascot, but I am kind of struggling on what how we can what's the process on how we can come up with our own character, not necessarily a mascot, a persona or something that people can identify with on our branding. Ihatid, uh, do you have examples of that wherein a brand uh, doesn't necessarily have a mascot but succeeds in being identifiable, much like a character?
Yep. Sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, that's a very fair question to ask. So there are brands that use visual stimulus to create demand or improve their stronghold, the stronghold of their affinity in people's minds. And I've not only through mascots, but the use of colors, the use of icons, the use of branding icons, literally like the check of Nike, many things that we can use to associate brand imagery to improve, to be top of mind on your consumer's mind. To your question, can we use mascots? Or maybe the question is mascot the best way to do it? Okay. Some examples in my mind are obviously it's Jollibee and McDonald's, and those are traditional. But let's before we talk about those examples, let's try to understand why they did it. Yeah, why they chose to uh, tap on mascots. First and foremost, it was the discovery that what's driving parental purchase of fried chicken or takeout food, fast food, is really because of pester power of kids. The market of Jollibee is around 60% family consumption. So the decision making involves a lot the influence of kids to their parents. Yeah. And so that changed the game. You need to bank on the power of children's influence to make parents buy. And to get into kids, you have to appeal to their needs and wants or what they expect of you. That's the time when Jollibee McDonald's created a lot of kid-centric campaigns um, to get children and their parents into their store. That's why they had mascots because of its playful characteristic and powerful imagery that it can offer to the market. So that's the obvious reason. Some brands like Michelin and Surf, for example, are also using mascots for reasons not other than appealing to kids. It's all about imagery. So Michelin, which is the Michelin Man, I'm sure you're familiar with him, the white guy made of tires, yeah, who looks like a mushroom.
Yeah, good year. Yan ba yun?
Yeah. So they did that simply because there has to be a cuter way of making Michelin recognizable. Michelin is an abstract brand. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. It's not. You can't even say if it's the name of the founder. It's not. It's just the brand that they choose to work with. So they cannot rely on the name of their brand alone to drive recognizability and so to drive recognition and visual influence, yeah, markers, visual markers. So that's why they reinforce the Michelin brand with the use of an icon, a mascot, that is playfully resonant of what the product is all about, which is tires. So he's the tires man, yeah. Same with Surf. So Surf, if you notice, in late 2010s, it actually launched its Bubble Man or Boy Bula, yeah, which is what we see on TV. Why would you do that? It's because Surf is already present in 9 out of 10 households. It's a highly penetrated brand. It's a mass brand. It's Mura, and because of its brand heritage that really latches on fragrance, yeah, fragrance, mabango. A lot of people think that Surf is just about fragrance. Yeah, Surf is just about bango. So the brand needed to figure out how can I dial up my credibility in terms of lather. Lather meaning ability to clean. Lather is a perception of people na nakakalinis yung isang product through bula. And the more bula the product delivers, the higher their perception of efficacy or cleanliness. Yeah. So Surf needed to dial up its credibility on lather, on bula, because confident na siya sa fragrance eh. Because diba flower yung mga imagery niya sa packaging, there are a lot of flowers on TV, explosion of flowers, blah, blah, blah. So they needed to dial up lather. Hence, Boy Bula. Bula is basically lather in person. He is he becomes now the bida. He's now the hero of if it's messaging that hey, not only is surf mabango, it's also mabula, hence boy bula. So these icons are very purposeful in nature, very purposeful. They serve a very, very powerful purpose to the benefit of your band or for your business. So I would discourage coming up with an icon for the sake of coming up with an icon or a mascot for that matter. Um, but it's not a bad idea for as long as it helps you land the message that you're trying to drive about your product or your service. And to that question, can you indulge me as to why you think a mascot is a good idea for your business?
I think the word I was looking for was yung imagery, because our brand, our logo is very ano lang, basic lang siya tala, ano kaya word lang siya na ihatid, except that the letter E was made into a similar sa street buy nga mura siya pin marker sa Google Maps.
Map.
Oh, but there's also ano nga medyo cliche na siya, and not a lot of people can appreciate that it doesn't really make you stand out. And we were thinking somewhere along the lines of either convenience or speed, na maano mi but I was with Kate last week, yung the previous speaker, and she mentioned how our branding is still all over the place, because aside from being bago pa sa ano no startup, um, we were kind of overwhelmed with the many things that we wanted to project, and Kate advised us to focus on one. So this actually relates to my second question, if you don't mind. But to answer your question, we wanted to be more easily recognized. Um, yung sabi mo kanina with regards sa sa dirt bag na somebody na astig na tito na uh, limpiado or clean. So that's an imagery na kanang pwede ma-remember sa mga tao. Not some abstract concept, but something that they can grasp. We wanted to have something like that. In fact, we tried to design the letter E as a helmet because it's easier to but we haven't succeeded yet. Um, but other than that, we are struggling kasi on how we can project that message. And to my second question, how can we also capitalize, if at all we should, on other advantages of our product or service, such as among price is very cheap, no, the cheapest in the market, but it's it seems to me that looking at other companies, like you said kanina, Surf, their household brand and pangmasa sila, but I think their branding focus more on other values, like the yung sabi mo efficiency, and how do we, is there such thing as ano yung parang secondary na mga um, messaging, like you have your primary branding, and then you have those secondary things that you can attach to that brand that people can say, oh, yet it's yes, it's a convenient, and it's a fast delivery service for groceries, and it's also the cheapest. So but we're trying to um figure if that's detrimental if we dilute it too much with too many things to remember, um, or would that be something that's advantageous? I rarely notice. I don't know if I'm missing other companies, but I don't see many companies really featuring pricing as their main strength. I usually ibang even the cheapest ones, they don't really brag about their price. So how do we approach this?
Right. So before I answer that, to example, not all companies, yes, they don't highlight price because price can change. It's the most fluid of all the factors, and it's basically beyond your control, aka inflation, yeah, dollar exchange, forex. Price cannot be controlled by you. So why base your branding around some things that you cannot control, diba? So that's why. But not necessarily pricing, but the value equation, meaning sulit ba, valuable ba. Again, going back to surf, no? When it launched in market around the 1990s, it really positioned itself as a value brand, meaning it's not an expensive brand, mura siya, but it's also very efficient in cleaning clothes. So instead of saying mura, they said singgaling pero di kasing mahal. Right? So that's a very playful way of communicating value without necessarily saying it's cheaper priced. Yep. So in other words, my point is there is a way of communicating value. If something you believe na that's your competitive advantage talaga. But to answer your question, let me go back to the seven parang sorry, the seven questions that we need to ask ourselves, no, in terms of how we come up with a big idea. Kasi technically what you're doing right now is you're undergoing the journey of coming up with a big idea. Kumbaga, ano ba talagang, what do I really want to say? Aside from with the clutter, the pile of potential messages that I can put out there, diba? And you're right, it's very intimidating. It can be very frustrating because it really is. There's no escaping that. It really is. So you have to go through these questions, the seven questions that I posed to you guys. And you can come up with, say, 100 permutations of brand messages out there. That's why FGDs are important and brainstorming is important. There's no there's no right or wrong naman in the outputs. So you're right. It could be that we can talk about price. It could be we can talk about product delivery na mas magaling to kasi sa kabila. It doesn't have to be comparative. It could be ikaw lang nag-claim niya na the number one soap in market. But syempre, anyway, ibang usapan yun. Ang point ko is, you have to deep dive. Kailangan mong mag-research with your team. Kung what product offer, price lang ba talaga? Or am I better in some characteristics? Am I better in terms of color, in taste, smell? Do I have better service? Do I have better location? Do I have faster lead time? What is it that you can claim? Not necessarily na ikaw lang makaka-claim nun, but what is it that you can claim boldly that you're better at? That's a powerful thought to ponder on. The more you ask these questions, the more you discover what your unique value proposition will be. Yeah. If you don't discover it, then there's an opportunity for you to come up with something that will drive differentiation na ikaw lang talaga. But it doesn't mean na magsasara ka, magka-close yung business is because wala kang mahanap na unique about you. Remember, there are a lot of copycats in the market who are still thriving, diba? There are a lot of Me Too brands who are making more money than the brands that they are copying, aka Louis Vuitton being copied by a lot of counterfeit products from China. They're making more money. It's a $24 billion underground market, yeah, which is around 3 times more than a Louis Vuitton sub-brand. Imagine that. So it's not nice to be a copycat, but it has its purpose if wala ka talagang competitive advantage or something that is unique to you. You can still thrive. But I would really challenge you to look for that thing na ikaw lang makaka-claim.
Thank you very much, sir.
So
Thank you, Pierce.
I know it's a very vague answer, but nobody really can answer that but you. What I can do is to, if we can schedule a session, I can guide you through on how to conduct a focus group discussion, how to conduct brainstorming. Maybe Shore can assemble a session that talks about the how, no? Parang what to do ba talaga step by step because it's not covered in the topic. But what's the step by step? What's the FGD? What's the brainstorming type? And then that's the time you get to appreciate the principles that I shared here. So, okay, just so you don't feel bad na it's a very intimidating, laborious process, think about it this way. Big companies, no? Global companies, pay a lot of money for creative agencies to do this for them. Yeah. So, meaning, kung willing sila magbayad sa service na to, it's costing them a lot of headache. But it's something that they think is important. That's why they're willing to pay for it. In other words, kailangan talaga siyang gawin. May it be painful or not. So, yeah. Ask these questions, ponder on it, keep on brainstorming, keep on talking to people that you're serving. So, i-present mo sa customer, sa potential mo na customer, oh, anong tingin mo dito? Anong tingin mo sa message na to? Gets mo ba? Do you like it? Don't you like it? Anong hindi mo gets? Oh, sige, then you regroup, edit, then balik. Do you like it? Edit, anong kailangan? Something like that. And it is really like that. That's how the process is. Yeah?
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
Okay, thank you, Sir Wael. We'll think about that. Oh, surely we'll assemble a session like that. Same goes with other incubatees. So that advice is vague. So I think it also applies to anyone. Okay, sir, unfortunately we're out of time. So we're down to second to the last question. This is from Hope of Piso Hand Sanitizer, another incubatee, sir. He's having a technical difficulty, so PM lang niya. Knowing that we are competing on a national or global stage with the internet, most startups use the tagline "Tatak Lokal" as part of their marketing and branding. But earlier you said that most Pinoys prefer branded products. This tagline uh, sounds more drawback, sir. Should we be more careful on using it?
Sorry, again. Sorry, I can't hear.
Okay. Uh, most startups use the tagline daw, sir, na tatak lokal as part of their branding marketing. Of course, para sa uniqueness. But earlier, you said na most Pinoys prefer branded products. So, ang tagline ba daw na tatak lokal is more drawback or should they be more careful in using such tagline?
Okay, sorry. The answer is no. It's not a drawback. Local, taking pride on it being local is not a drawback. So let me go back to these numbers here, no? If you look at the last number here, 52% are partial about local brand options, but 77% are enthusiastic about exciting local brands. So what I'm saying here is the 52% tells us about people's perception about local brands not at being at par with its foreign counterparts. Because of the mistakes that local brands have done in the past, na talaga namang cheap, talaga namang hindi at par in terms of quality. But what I'm saying is that has already changed. Yeah, a lot of local companies and brands are really stepping up their game to be able to be at par with their local international counterparts. That is why it signals here that 77% of Pinoys are now enthusiastic about local brands because of the improved quality, improved experience that it offers. So don't be ashamed that you're a local. There's nothing to be ashamed or be intimidated about because you're local. In fact, it is now a unique selling proposition. So because of COVID, just a big bit of a reality check. Because of COVID, a lot of big food brands took a hit in terms of business share. Yeah. And because of course their doors have closed, foot traffic has dropped, etc., etc., they're more expensive and people are more cash conservative nowadays. Who stepped up to meet the needs of those affected consumers? It's really local brands. Yeah. So local brands now are being perceived as heroes. They save the day because they manage to offer the quality products cheaper at that, more accessible, more fresh, less guilty because they are not using preservatives. Kung food to, for example, they're not using preservatives. They are made with love kasi heritage and heritage recipes from their grandmother, heirloom recipes, etc. for food, for example. So there is already a renaissance of local brands, and it's something that we need to be mindful, and you guys as local startups need to embrace because there's a huge revolution around supporting local, and you guys are at the forefront of taking advantage of it.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Sir Yael. That was pretty concise and inspiring. Okay, on to our last question. Okay, so you've mentioned about mistakes made by directors when it comes to branding. Okay, can you cite one so our incubatees can learn from it and, of course, avoid such mistakes, since especially they are eventually going to scale up?
Oh, you have no idea how many mistakes people have made in terms of branding. There is just too many to mention. Um, Let me cite a quite recent one, which is if you own a smartphone, which I trust everyone has right now, if you have downloaded a lot of apps from Google, so you have like Google Nest, Google Wi-Fi, Gmail, Google Photos. If you have these apps, you're very much aware that sorry, Alphabet as the mother company of Google has already rebranded itself, and part of their rebranding efforts is to unify and harmonize all the look and feel of all their apps. Yeah, and borrowing from the colorful elements of its mother brand Google. Di ba maraming primary colors yan. You have green, blue, red, etc. They borrowed the visual equity of Google and translated it across all the apps that the Alphabet company has. So if we look at the apps right now, they basically look the same. Yeah, they basically look the same. And actually, in the design community, people are going wild around it because let me show it to you. If you can see, so these are the new apps of Google. Yeah. And if you look at the mental perception of its consumers, they basically look the same. But these are powerful brands, supposedly. You have Gmail, yep, Google Drive, Google Maps, Google Home, Calendar. It lost already its distinct and differentiated appeal for its individual apps in the name of unified branding. Whilst one can argue that it is good and beneficial because it provides consistency and it builds into memory structure, same color, same appeal, same etc. But it failed to recognize the need for functionality, that apps coexist with other apps in the phone, and people will need normally assign colors to a specific app for them to find it. And now that they look the same, there's higher propensity for people to click on a Gmail app when intentionally they wanted to go to Google Wi-Fi. So that's a classic mistake, of prioritizing and obsessing on branding versus considering the functionality, what people wanted. That's why I always been advocating before you make any changes to your brand, invest time, tears, sweat in getting a feel, a sense check, an acid test on what your consumers are telling you. So above anything else, as entrepreneurs, as marketeers, as brand owners, don't just wear your entrepreneur hat. Also wear your consumer hat. Yeah. And devil's advocate all the time. Because that's the only way yet you can espouse this culture of continuous learning, continuous improvement, lifelong improvement, and not growing, focusing on growing our brands more than growing our egos.
Oh, thank you so much, Sir Roel. That made me speechless. Okay, thank you so much. So that's pretty much it for our Q&A session. I'll give back the virtual floor to Miss Shore.
Okay, thank you so much for that talk. Sorry, we've ano ba to, nag-extend tayo for 30 minutes, actually 45 minutes. It was actually such a great talk that hindi ako mali sa pwesto ko. I was really listening to it. And now, before we conclude this session with a virtual group photo, I'd like to give the floor to our project leader, Rhea, for the closing remarks.
Yes, hello, good morning. So, more than anything, thank you to our speakers, namely Kate, that we outsourced, and also Wael for a very informative talk. Just to borrow what Jeff Bezos said, because Wael gave very good examples of branding, especially with Amazon. Jeff even, close kami ni Jeff, no? Jeff even said, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So the impact of branding and more so marketing is really important because you might no longer be there in your business, but your brand will stay. And the brand is the very reason why your customer would always buy from you, would always utilize your service or your product because they see something. More than that, brand brings in customer loyalty, which I think businesses really thrive and strive for them to last, for the business to last more than a lifetime. That is why we are bringing in efforts to really harmonize, to really clean up how you will position yourself in the market. And this is a very important part in bringing up your business because, again, you're just starting up, you're just beginning your journey. Kate even said that changing your brand, pivoting it to a new one would be costly in the end, and we don't want you to have that mistake. We want you to be as guided as possible even at the very early stage of your business. No wonder we are bringing in the experts to really help you. They may not handhold you in the entire journey, but at least they are sharing their experiences, their expertise in really bringing up the brand in you and really bringing up the brand from in your startup. So thank you so much to our esteemed speakers for really giving in their time to be with us and teaching us the details that we need. And I do hope you incubatees will really seize the opportunity to really implement what they have shared and what they have discussed, because again, we at CDO Bytes are more than happy to see how far you've come and the journey that you will be going through in the process. And again, you're not only bringing in your startup name, but also you're bringing in a banner that is more than Tatak Lokal, as what Hope and Shore always stated earlier. So thank you so much to our speakers, and thank you so much, Incubatees. And again, we hope to see you next week in our future Fire Starter virtual sessions. Maayong buntag kanatong tanan.
Ay, sorry. Okay, so nakamute pala ako. So thank you so much, everyone. Before we end this virtual session, last reminder, Karen's talk will be on Monday at 11 in the morning until 12 noon. So I'd like to ask everyone to turn on their cameras for the virtual
Innovation
session.
Forum.
Oh yes, Innovation Nation Forum. Please sign up for that. You will be interacting and hearing from various innovation champions and enablers. Of course, kasali kami doon. Okay, so please join, register for the event. It's free. It's a collaboration with Kubo Innovation Hub and our startup ecosystem host agencies. All right. There. Nawala si Wael. Okay. All right. So everyone, please turn on your cameras for the your photo. All right, on three. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Wang. Keep safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.